whole?
I think that not we
You think that
still start.
we'll start
No,
then?
we start now
And there is a 15 minutes delay, so everyone has.
akadeemische filter.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so
I will.
so you can. Okay, let's start then.
hakkasid autoga tulema?
Nad võivad tulla tund aega, ei tea. Võib-olla tulevad vähem.
Tartust väiksem. Okay. Thank you for coming. Let's then begin with our symposium, which, as you probably know, always accompanies the Pärnu Contemporary Music Days. So we do not only perform modern music, but also new music, but also have discussions about these topics. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Albini, who then actually is talking about constraints on how mathematics can, how it can be applied in your artistic activity. So please.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for being here. So I'd like to start this journey from some images and asking you, what do you see? Cosmos, right? Everybody agreed.
Not only.
Maybe.
But maybe also water.
Ice,
Who knows? I mean,
maybe.
ice, water,
Ice.
cosmos, KS.
But still something new, right?
Yes.
Again, what do you see?
I think it's Europe.
Yeah, might be. Yeah, quite close. A bit distorted.
The thing is that both these images are taken from a very, very little portion.
Oh.
This is a friend of mine, Valentina Benvenu. She's an artist, and she works with water. It's okay. The idea of water was who said you? No.
I think that it would be water. Yeah.
Yeah, and she just works with water on this glass, and she worked out. Well, I cannot say that she's working with details. She is most like to prepare something, and she's very interested in changing the elements in doing so, the chemicals. And then she started looking for something on the glass. So it's like that she's constrained in the use of glass, in the use of water and of chemicals. And then she goes with this camera that's quite a micro camera. So every pictures, it is something like less than 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter on this glass. And she goes looking for a nice picture, and she prepares something thematically. And so she obtained very strange and beautiful things, in my opinion. This looks like ice. I don't know, North, South Pole. I don't know what. Or shells, or something, I don't know, some musical, or something like that. So she worked out thematically all these ideas. So okay, because I used her things, I'd like to credit her. And I start with her because, in my opinion, it is very close to what I actually do, starting from constraints to create an artwork. so easy, the idea by itself, but there is something inside it. There is this concept of wonder. As me, she likes to have some constraints, but to be surprised by something happening in these constraints. So in some way, she is like public in the way of creating, because she gets something from the process. She's not completely controlling the process itself. So the idea is that in the case of Valentina, there are technical, physical, and material limitations that give rise to unforeseeable effects to be browsed and then selected to get to the artwork. So this is the idea on how she moved from constraints to artwork, passing through a moment of wonder. And the interesting fact about art is that she moves so from informalism, from an informal abstract process to figurative art, because she's looking for something that can be seen from a figurative point of view. And that's also quite interesting inside this way of behaving. So let's try to translate it to music. If we wish to translate these ideas to music, we will have some musical regulatory principles as constraints that again give rise to unforeseeable effects to be browsed and then selected. That's exactly what I do. And to explain it, nothing is better than let you listen a short work of mine that is String Quartet number 6. The title, Solo per grado congiunto, means just for conjunct step. So the idea is to compose a string quartet in which every instrument is just playing scales and no more, and see what happens, like with Valentina's Water. There is also another little trick inside this chord that I often use, and that is that after 2 minutes, I decided to simply have a palindrome. But why so? Because there is an unforeseeable effect there too. I compose the first part, then I simply reverse and I see if it works. I would like to surprise myself, to participate in this act of wonder, and see if something beautiful happens again. And about that you will judge. Okay, so let's start with this. The performers are Quartetto Indaco, and the performance is of 2012, if I remember well. So the second part of the score was a surprise to me too. So I like to say that being an artist, I want to participate in the wonder, in the beauty, not in controlling it, but mostly in appreciating it, in trying to understand it. Okay. So let me explain how I usually do it in a more organized way with mathematics. Usually I select some conventional musical elements. I study such elements by the means of a mathematical formalization. I apply the discoveries I have made to set unique constraints to abide by while composing, and finally I compose in the new grammar I have set, being ultimately aware of what I have eventually discovered, and hopefully uncovering new ways to deal with the conventional material. The idea is that, again, hopefully, I can reveal an alternative nature of the chosen material, because usually I like to work with elements that are typical of our musical legacy, like a diatonic scale, like I did in my string quartet, like with triads, like with things that we have used and abused in our tradition quite a lot. And compose with the new freedom of this limited set of action, but with novelty and the focus on conventional elements hopefully ensured. So I don't know if you see the colors there, but I have colored by red all the words that are connected to wonder, discoveries, discovered, uncovering new ways, revealed, novelty, and with blue, the one connected to the topic of constraints, mathematical formalization, constraints, grammar, limited set of action. So they participate in two apparently different and different and difficult to link words, but this is my way to make them work together. So to use something that apparently is just a limitation to get a surprise, to get some new freedom. Okay. Have you ever seen this graph?
Yes.
Yes, I know that you would answer yes. This is the Dalton and Steinbach chicken wire torus is the name. So I will not be technical. I did last year and I think it was a mistake, because I'm here as a composer and I prefer to make you listen to my music than talk about mathematics. But one of my theoretical topic is the study of musical elements, of harmonic musical elements from the point of view of graph theory. So this is a quite famous graph that's quite useful if you are trying to analyze some passages of the 19th century music, because every point in this graph is a triad. Capital letters are major triad and lower ones are minor triads, and they are connected in this graph only if, moving from one triad to another, you are just changing one tone on the tree. So you see at the center C major that can go just to E minor, A minor, and C minor. And you see, if I go from C major to E minor, I just have to change one pitch. If I go from C major to A minor, I have to change just one pitch again. And again if I change the mode. So this is a kind of, Tchaikovsky would have defined it, exterior proximity of keys. And from a compositional point of view, I've studied it a lot, and I've also generalized the problem of creating such graphs with different chords and whatever. So my theoretical research has given a quite powerful tool to deal with any kind of graph of this type. This graph comes out of an article of 1998 around, but can be seen as a generalization of the Euler's tonnets. Now we don't want to go deep about that. And why it's interesting from a compositional point of view, because if you move inside this path, you have something that it's very conservative in the way of voice leading. You are limited to triads, but still there is no tonality at all in the path you create. Instead of one that Beethoven's using Ninth Symphony, but now this one on many possibilities. So this is for another one of the many examples I have. I don't want to show you many, but just another one. I used to constrain myself inside a kind of harmony. And now I show you another score of mine. This is the third movement of my string quartet number 8. This was a commission for celebrating the year of Carlo Gesualdo da Venosa. So I have taken some material from his madrigal Moro Lasso. And again, I wanted to use it in a new light. I have stretched it a lot because that's quite living madrigal, but there are some few moments very lyrical that, in my opinion, it would be beautiful to play very slowly. That's what I did here, just cutting out the passages I like. And then I connected them through some paths on this graph that are underlined in red. And so I create these moments of transitions between representations of these thematical moments taken from Gesualdo, and at this very point I put again the beginning of a palindrome. So again I have composed just half of the score, and then I wanted to be surprised. Okay, so I let you listen to this as well, if you don't mind. so it is. And again, here the idea is that we have something very, very small. It's just a 3-measure theme. And with that, and just some constraints, I do everything. So it's like to have like a little diamond that is the Gesualdo's fragment, and then I change the light around this diamond, I put some geometry in it, and I try to build up something. And also there is this idea, I like to do something and to get a surprise by myself, to participate in this moment of wonder, let's say so. Well, of course, these ideas I'm not the first to present. This is a quotation by Ernst Gombrich, and it is taken from a comment of him on the aesthetic of Freud, so we can go back and see also what Freud had said in case. And what Gombrich theorizes is that there is an element in all art, and certainly in all Western art, which might, for brevity's sake, be called the cat's cradle element. Art is born of art. The young artist takes over the game from his predecessors, and as he does so, he introduces variations. And this is the most important part, the last one. There must be, and there are, procedures in science and engineering where some medium or model is used for trying out structures through analogies, and where techniques of systematic variation and permutation are used to discover fresh possibilities. That is exactly what I do. Because with mathematics, the first thing we do as mathematicians is to count. So usually we count just the possibilities we have. And if we think also the Ars Combinatoria by Leibniz, that's exactly what he did about music. It started with 6 tones and say, okay, let's count how many possibilities. I have to combine them and see what we can do. There is another beautiful quotation around the same years, because the last one was, if I remember well, 1963 or 1964. This one is 1968, because Calvino could have read a translation of the Gombrich's comment. And so this one came from Cibernetica e Fantasmi, Cybernetics and Ghosts, an essay of Italo Calvino. That's a transcription of one of his conferences of that period, in which he says that the childish pleasure of the combinatorial game leads the painter to experiment layouts of lines and colors, and leads the poet to experiment juxtapositions of words. Then something triggers, and one of the combinations mechanically and autonomously got, that's the most important part. So the combination you got there, not as an act of will, but as something that comes out of a procedure, but you choose them, regardless of any meaning or effect on any other level, gains an unexpected meaning or an unforeseen effect that would never have been gained intentionally, an unconscious meaning, or at least the premonition of it. So the theory of Calvino in this little essay is that there is the cybernetics of these combinatorial processes, the automatic processes, but also there is the ghost of the artist and of humanity vibrating in front of it. And so, like that, humanity is a filter for art. So the combinatorial element is nothing without somebody there. Also, I'd like to quote about similar ideas Tom Johnson, because yesterday we had a score of him, when he says that there is something particularly satisfying about projects where the logic seems to arise naturally from some discovery, again the same idea of discovery, outside of myself, and where everything comes together with a minimum of composing. And finally, we are in Estonia, so let's tribute also Arvo Pärt. Before I choose a rule, I have a clear idea of what I want to express. I feel the need to retreat and to present something objective. Okay, the aim of Pärt is a little bit different, but again, that there are some connections, some similar ideas. And I will conclude then with, again, a quotation by Gombrich when he says, I like to insist another, well, I say, I like to insist on the formulation that the artist must be a discoverer. Just as the verbal joke is discovered in the language, so the masters of other artistic media find their effects prefigured in the language of style. Okay, this is a little bit claiming, but I like it, so I let him claim. And with that, I end, and I ask you if you have some question or comments or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have just a question to the tone nets you showed. Maybe you can go back to it. Maybe I don't read it correctly, but it's a question. And why you have for the major and the minor C separated dots there? Does it mean the key or just one note?
Is the triad?
It's a triad.
Yes. I represented the triads with just the tonic or the fundamental of the triad.
Then it really, yeah.
It's like German system, uppercase letters are major triads and lowercase letters are minor triads.
Yes, I know, but then if you go from C to E to G, then we also would get an triad, so I was confused a little bit.
Yes, you can get.
It looks like a triad.
It looks like, but not always. Yes, it depends how you read.
Not always, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can be confusing.
If you read horizontal, it looks like a triad, but it's a series of triads of C major, E minor, and G major.
Because I prefer to write this way than add plus and minus.
Yeah, I know.
Plus and minus
This
are
I
a bit,
understood the no, but I was confused where.
and
where
it is connected to the tonnets because every phase is a pitch, because it's the shared pitch by the six triads
okay.
there.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
for example, if you see C, A, F, A flat, and C, they all share the pitch C. And so again, if you take what we call in mathematics the geometrical dual, the topological dual, because we have to embed it on a surface, on a torus in this case, you get back to the Euler tonnets.
Yeah.
Not here.
Okay. What?
You emphasized the process of creating variations and then filtering out the better ones as one of the important parts. This process is also basically the underlying process of evolution in nature as well as in cultural evolution. So I'm wondering if you have made any explicit connection to the evolutionary processes or concepts in your work.
Not yet, but that's a very good point. Yes, it could be. So I think it's better that I don't make such a connection, because in doing so I would claim that I'm resembling some natural evolution. But yes, why not? Why not? But I think that here the main difference is that in evolution the fitness function is given by strength or by selection, natural selection, let's say. What is the natural selection here? It is an aesthetical kind of one, and so it would be interesting then, why not, to see the history of art from the point of view of such kind of Darwinistic aesthetical selection. I don't know. Here I face, we talked a lot about this with my supervisor, that's Professor Hotta, about this. The problem I feel is that I am midway between a modernist approach and a postmodernist, because I like to work with material that are old ones, but also I'm seeking the new. And so I am in that position that's quite difficult. And about that again, going back, if we have to trace the story of art in an evolutionary view, I remember a beautiful comment that was made by Tarushkin when he has been invited in the Academy in Tallinn, and said that mostly our history of art, it is a history of change and innovation. It's not a history of beauty or some other topics. So again, if we try to see these in an evolutionary way, what would we put as a fitness function? What is that? Is that I get the innovation? Is that I get something beautiful? Is that, what is the question there? So I don't know, really. And it was fantastic in that case to listen to one of the most important living musicologists saying that what he has written is partially paradigmatic and so partially crap. That's just to say it in a very bold way, but that was exactly, I think, what he was trying to say.
Hans first.
Yeah. Can you switch back to this Arvo Pärt citation?
Yeah.
I need the exact. So.
Sorry, there are the animations.
Okay.
Oh, too much.
Before I choose a rule, I have to have a clear idea of what I want to express. Okay, please comment it again. Did you also feel that you do exactly the same way?
No, not at all. I wanted just to pay a tribute to other people doing something similar, but I do my way. I cannot say with that, sir, to be so sure about what I want to express. Did I have expressed?
Yes, of course. I felt the same. I take a rule and play around, and then if I realize the rule, then I see what it will express.
I'm saying almost the opposite.
Yeah.
So.
Or it is something. It is something a dialogue for me. And if I see it's expressed that, and I will need it different. So it's just more like a ping pong game than a one direction line.
And also, I don't like that much because Arvo Pärt, I discussed it in a recent paper that's now in review. This concept of being objective, I don't like that much because what does it mean to be objective? Why are you okay? You can have some automatic process, but you are still choosing the process.
Yeah, of course.
You are still controlling the process.
Yeah.
So in all my presentation, I have tried to tell you how I am into that process.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, this objective here means that what Arvo Pärt actually wants to do is to find a kind of, he tries to formalize. I mean, yes, he has a very clear idea what to express, and then he's looking for the formalization of it, which would produce this result. So without Arvo Pärt actually participating in this process anymore. So he's not interested in composing in a conventional way. Okay, I have an idea and I just choose some means to express that, but rather to go to the more abstract level and try to formalize it and try to, so that it would produce, I mean, it's a kind of machine. I mean, what then he puts then actually produces exactly what Arvo Pärt wants. So it means objective. So Arvo Pärt as if, I mean, he is not participating, as if not participating in this process anymore. Of course, he is choosing what are the rules. So I think this is what objective means. So and this is not so far from it, because it's the same thing that he wants to be aware of what are the possibilities, and then what possibilities can be used in order to express that idea. But yes, it should be.
Yeah.
And here is also important historical context, because it was, as I remember, it was in some 70s.
70s, yeah.
Because it was very big turn from this kind of avant-gardistic way of expression to
Yeah.
this kind of Tintinavoli way of using the Tintinavoli.
Well, it's even hard to say whether it's avant-garde or because
No.
I mean, from let's say it's rather the turn from kind of
I think
free
it's-
expression to
There is also
objective.
Paul,
Yeah.
that was great.
And Paul,
No, actually, Andres, thanks. The date helps me understand. As I read this quote, I was thinking that his clear idea of what I want to express comes from the liturgy, from his faith. So that perhaps it's not a musical expression, but rather an expression of his faith. So he's looking for text from the liturgy that he's interested in. And then, after having chosen a particular prayer, he then looks for the technique or the rule that will help him clearly express this. But if this is coming from this sort of in-between period, then this means something completely different.
Yeah, but I think it's about
it's
instrumental
after the
music.
Tintinabuli, yes.
Yeah, after
This is-
Tintinabuli.
yeah,
Ah,
so
okay.
yeah, it's not related to the
Yeah.
previous.
I just
Yeah, please.
just totally will emphasize that, of course, that is this typical avant-gardistic idea. What I see that there was this problems that the composers, even at Stockhausen, they want to retreat from to repeat their own music education and then to be as a person more far from the creation. But today's situation is completely different. We have a different music experience. We listen to avant-gardistic music and to 12-tone music, and we have that already as a heritage. What that they all already developed in the 50s and later.
Question.
Yes.
When possible, please can you go back in your description of your creative process, this constraints, wonder, artwork? Yeah, actually my question is, what is this wonder for you? Can you explain this?
It is not that easy, because ontologically speaking, the aesthetical moment is so difficult to explain through discourse. If it was that easy, I would not compose music. So okay, that's the answer. Because again, how can I explain what beauty is if I'm seeking it?
So can you explain your this situation in what you feel this? Because I understand it is some kind of feeling or it is some kind of revelation
It's an
situation. Yes.
It's an epiphany, let's say
Yeah.
so. But that's an aesthetical moment. But the only thing I can say is that we are in the field of aesthetics, of aesthetical feeling, and I would not like to describe it with the process, because I'm not describing the feeling, I'm describing the process through which I get to that feeling.
Mhm.
And so it is so difficult from a philosophical point of view to explain that ontology. But it is important for me because, as I was saying yesterday, the real risk in using some logics and mathematical tools in composing is that you can think that your music is good because the process is good, or because the ideas behind the process are clever. There is a quotation from Formalized Music by Xenakis in the introduction, in which he says something like that. Then the music is beautiful, so no problem. But he says something that is quite risky.
Actually, my second question was that okay, when our goal is this wonder, actually, when we talk, we all will to be relevated, to have wonder. Can we have this kind of wonder without these mathematical structures?
Could be so. That's my tool. In my recent discovery is that mathematics is my musical instrument. So when people ask me now, what instrument do you play? I don't reply anymore, I'm a guitarist or I'm a pianist. I reply, I'm a mathematician. So that's my way to get to the wonder. So it's my way to control and use music.
But have
Playing.
you some pieces not for mathematics?
Yes, yes, and many, but the thing is that in this moment of my life, when I'm doing something like this, I feel that this is myself. When I'm doing something other, okay, that's something I have been trained to do. So you ask me to do a soundtrack, okay, I can do it, but I don't want to lose my time. Because it's not me, I'm doing something that is not...
You don't have wonder in this?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So it's a form of, let's say, aesthetical meditation.
Okay.
There is my girlfriend that attacks me a lot about this. She said, you're not writing music, and so we have quite tough nights sometimes, and I say, no, this is not the way you think. Because she's a guitarist, and she's used to play other kind of music. Say, okay, but this is mine, this is myself. You know? There was, you were writing?
I have heard like a quote that constraints breed creativity, and the more you constrain yourself, the more creative you get. And I think that's the same thing, or not?
I didn't catch you in the first part.
There was a quote from someone that
Stravinsky says
I
so.
don't
Yes.
know.
It was Stravinsky, say the more you are constrained, the more you're free.
Yeah.
In Stravinsky.
I think that's pretty much the same thing.
Yep. Yep, it would have been another good quotation from another poet. Stravinsky was the same that said there are so many scores to be written in C major. Still. So yes, that would be a good quotation as well.
Yeah, if you always use the same kind of mathematical formalization, you would get experiences, and so you would not be so surprised anymore. So do you rather search for new kind of formalizations
Yes.
to get again
Yes.
the
And I also change the field, because sometimes I'm working on, let's say, harmony or harmonic related elements. Sometimes I move to some performative elements. It depends. I try to find out something to analyze from a mathematical point of view and see what happens. And usually it's also quite a relief to working like this, because I'm not always composing, and I'm not always studying something from the music theoretical point of view. So there is these two elements in my life, and I can, when I am stressed and I cannot find anything in composition, okay, I go back studying, and there is something to do. It's like to have two perfect wives, you know. You can move. In case something gets wrong in one family, you have the other one. Okay, now I'm joking. And that is something, because also I see that the more I compose, the more I get ideas about musicological research, and the more I do musicological research, the more I get ideas about composing. But that's me, again, that's not the way I would suggest, yes, a universal rule.
But the level of being surprised, is it different in you and in the audience, how you treat this?
Yes, but still, I can answer with Calvino again. When he says that there is the artist that is the ghost in front of the process, he says, then, if the ghost, the artist, is lucky, it can be that he is like a prophet, anticipating some effect on the audience.
Yeah.
But sincerely, who cares? And I'm quite sincere about that. So I'm satisfied about what I do, and I don't care that much that you're satisfied as well. Wonder is my wonder.
Okay, no more questions, comments? Okay, thank you again, and
Should I
next presenter.
Windows, so maybe it's easy.
that is